At the Forum on Security in Odesa, you gave a very illuminating perspective on the human rights situation globally, but in particular in Cuba, and how it relates to Ukraine and what's happening here, and why your struggle and Ukraine's struggle are interrelated and one and the same. Could you just repeat your main thesis? What did you say?
Well, absolutely. First and foremost, we must establish that human rights violations shouldn't recognize any kind of limit, nor ideological, nor geographical, because by principle, we must defend and support human rights. That's a non-negotiable point. The second issue here is that when you ask the first question, you use a word, neglect. And by neglecting actors like Cuba, right now, as we speak, Ukraine is paying a heavy price. I'm not forgetting the political prisoners that are languishing in Cuban prisons. They are suffering. They are being tortured. They've been killed. More than 1,000. A lot of them minors. So you have an idea. But here's the deal. That regime that was trained by the KGB, honed by the Stasi, that regime that created a network with global outreach, it's right now one of the most important strategic allies of Putin in his war of aggression against Ukraine.
Tell me why.
Well, you have 3,000 quote-unquote mercenaries, from our perspective, victims of human trafficking, fighting for Russia against Ukraine. You have professional soldiers from the Cuban military training Russians in Belarus. We have financial institutions and Cuban officials helping the Russians to bypass sanctions established by the European Union and the US. Don't take my word for it. Read the last OFAC report. And on top of everything, they are shaping the narrative in the Western Hemisphere. What Latin American countries, and our foundation has a presence in 16 of them. The version of events that you're seeing is not the Ukrainian version of events. They don't know about Irpin and Bucha. They know about the Russian propaganda. They know the version that depicts Ukraine as a Nazi state. They are being fed the narrative that everything that happens in Ukraine, it's actually a false flag operation. And that is why we should care about this regime. It's not only because they managed to destroy Venezuela and they have created the largest human rights crisis in the world right now. 8 million Venezuelans expelled from their own country.
So tell me, what is the Ukrainian embassy doing in Cuba then, in Havana?
That's an excellent question. We have not managed to answer that question because right now, as we speak, you have a nuclear attack submarine belonging to the Navy of the Russian Federation, a frigate, the Admiral Gorshkov, equipped with nuclear-capable missiles, sitting at the harbor in Havana. So that's a very relevant question. How come that right now Ukraine is still a place where you have a diplomatic outpost coming from this regime that is sending soldiers to fight against you, that is helping your enemy to bypass sanctions, that is facilitating its financial transactions? That is a question that begs for a proper and logical answer.
Thank you. Certainly plenty to think about. Thank you for pointing all these things out today to the broader public, and Kyiv Post is always receptive to your inputs, your op-eds and information. Thank you very much.
It's an honor and a privilege, sir.